This is the Hunt Quietly podcast. I'm Matt Rinella.
This happens to me today.
Okay, lay it out.
First, the sun rose, and second, my family still loves me.
Man, you don't demand a lot.
Everything else is great, and plus, I get to work saving the world. So,
Do you know who David Hume is?
that name sounds familiar, but I'll say no.
I say is because, sometimes, like, especially with famous people, even though they're long deceased, they're talked about in the present tense. So, David Hume, do you know who he was, Ben? Or is?
Yeah, he was a philosopher, right?
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
a
moral philosopher.
Well, a bit of that for sure,
Yeah.
but he also had a lot to say about epistemology.
Yeah.
And yeah, he was Scottish, and he has this famous riddle of induction, and it's hard to explain, but he said that in a formal sense, no number of past incidences of something occurring counts as evidence that it will occur the next time, like such as the sun rising. That was one of his examples. Yeah. Was that when you are counting on the sun to rise, he's not urging you to give up that belief. He's just trying to say something about the logic involved in the belief, that there's really no logical reason to believe that will be the case.
Because if you die overnight, does the sun rise? Not for you.
No, that's akin to another philosopher, Berkeley, or Bishop Berkeley.
Mm.
He's the University of Berkeley in California is named after him.
Mm.
And he was the one that said, like, if a tree falls in the forest, nobody is around to hear, did it really make a noise? So if the sun rises and you're dead, if you didn't see it
really rises
for you.
Absolutely.
All I was thinking, Matt, was just that when he said that the secret to life is low expectations.
Yeah.
So you took that another way.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard a guy say once, and this guy was not a philosopher. He was a youth pastor. And he said there's two ways to be blessed. You can have lots of money or inexpensive taste.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which
but really, when we're on our deathbeds, love is what's going to matter, right? We're going to think of the love. We're not going to remember how much money we made, how many cars we had or anything, or a fancy job. We're going to remember the love. So if we wake up every day and prioritize that, everything else is... Everything else flows from that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. And it's a one hell of a life hack to prioritize gratitude,
Exactly.
Because if one it takes time to be grateful, then boy, it sure buffers against any negative stuff that's going on in the here and now.
So Anne Frank, her quote. So Anne Frank, in concentration camps by the Nazis, her whole family was killed. She was eventually killed as well. But when she and her family were in hiding, being pursued by the Nazis, she wrote, in spite of a 14-year-old girl, in spite of everything, I still believe people are truly good at heart.
Wow.
And I think to myself, shame on me if I ever have a bad day.
Yeah.
As an American, we live in such prosperous safe, secure times, and there's Anne Frank, able to see things that way.
Oh, this is not a good way to start. Yeah, because now I just want to go. Now I just want to go quietly engage in some kind of self-flagellation because, man, it's so true. It's so true.
Yeah. No, we are all lucky. Yeah. So there you go. That's why I'm doing awesome.
I didn't know that Anne Frank ended up getting killed by the Nazis.
Yeah.
But her diary survived.
That's right. And very powerful, poignant, insights.
Mm. There's another book, a small tangent called, I think it was like Hitler's coffee table or something like that. And it was the people who were sort of his underlings, but not in a sort of capacity to sort of give orders, just kind of, fill in the coffee cup, etc. And it was really interesting to that was like the best kind of primary source into some of his inner workings. So I don't know if you'd ever heard of that, but it kind of, it's a lot of things that help fill in some of the blurry parts of that mosaic.
Yeah, Anne was right in, I'm sure, in an important sense that people are, even a lot of the Nazis were probably good people. Like, about those prison experiments that they did to understand why, how such a huge number of otherwise formerly decent people could do such atrocious shit. Where,
I'd think way too much of myself to think if I was just a 25-year-old in 1930s Germany, I probably would have been a Nazi.
Right.
It's a very sad, but to think that you would have been resilient enough and clear-headed enough and put values above your own life enough to push through that, probably not.
Yeah, there's very few Schindlers out there, right?
Yeah.
This is what I thought we'd be talking about, you guys, just so you know.
We needed a biologist to help with this.
I don't put any sideboards on this stuff, I really don't. I try not to. It's like, I don't know, it's just less interesting if you don't let things go where they will.
Well, and I'm often asked, how are you? I say awesome. Sometimes I say fawsome, which is F''awesome. And for people who listen, a lot of times they push back a little, like, really? Why? You asked Matt why.
Yeah.
And truly, that's how I feel when I wake up every day. I'm blessed. Great gratitude, like you said. So I'm 61 I'm almost 62. I'm going to go out tomorrow afternoon and go to my favorite place in the mountains and try and kill an elk with my recurve.
Sweet.
My idea of heaven is September 20th on a mountainside at 8 a.m. with the sun coming up and the aspen are gold and the bulls are bugling in the canyon below. That is heaven on earth for me.
Man, can I come?
Yeah. I mean, how blessed
What state do you live in?
Idaho.
Okay.
Close enough. Ted, it's interesting you bring that up because sometimes in the North Dakota sage grouse news, I'm sure we'll get to that, but for you to have that outlook, knowing that most wild places and wild species, there's very few that are doing better tomorrow versus yesterday.
Yeah.
And so maybe you kind of have, this is part of the reinforcement so you can kind of get up and do that day job.
Yeah. So I spent 30 years working as a federal endangered species biologist for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And I once had a colleague, not in the endangered species program and the refuges program, ask me, how do you keep your chin up, man? I mean, there's just more and more endangered species. They're all doing, well, not they're all doing worse, but, like you said, overall the trend is down, right? More people, more resources consumed, less wild places, less wildlife. And I said, well, it's very simple for me. Because of me and the work that I do, we lose less.
Yeah.
We save a little more. Our rate of loss is a little bit less, which means that we're going to give our children's children that many more opportunities to turn the corner when the time comes. And my colleague was like, well, that works for me. That's great. It's all relative, I guess, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What did you work on during those 30 years?
Well, I started out in Idaho here working on the variety of species listed here, including supporting getting bald eagles and peregrine falcons delisted, doing my small part as a low-level staff biologist. Then I led wolf reintroduction in Idaho, actually, somewhat by accident, not because I'm one of those wolf. I mean, I love wolves. I love seeing them when out hunting. I want them there, but I'm not a wolves. With wolves, to most people, wolves are either the devil or a deity. And to me, they are neither. They're another species of wildlife. But anyway, I led reintroduction for 3 years in the early 90s. And then was a bull trial coordinator, went to Nevada, worked on sage grouse for the better part of my 5 years there, including the original decision to not list that species under the Endangered Species Act. Then I moved to Albuquerque, where I was the regional endangered species chief. And so 200 listed species there in that region. That's Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, Arizona. And one of the species I worked with there a lot was the lesser prairie chicken. So then I retired from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and the North American Grouse Partnership Board said, hey, do you want to apply for the job of executive director? And I thought, no. And here I am. Because you just can't. I thought, well, if I don't do it, who is? And I've got this inside track. I've got these relationships. I know what we need to do. And, well, I thought I did, but I've been learning ever since. So
what was the work like when you were working on endangered species? Were you doing demography or habitat work?
People and politics and emotions and economics. All the things I was not trained for in my 6 years of college.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I was going to be curious to know if you had a sort of, if you were able to sort of stay in the lab, or if you had to become a sort of bureaucrat, evangelist.
Yeah, I started out working on Endangered Species Act consultations between agencies. So the Forest Service or the BLM would want to do a project. Grizzly bears occurred there or whatever, so they'd have to consult with our office in Boise, and we'd say, oh, if you do it this way, then we'll be okay. And so that's what I started doing. And then I started managing, and then it just really, that all comes down to communication, right? I mean, we know what's going on. We know what the pressures are. We know which direction things are going. We know that every time somebody wakes up and wants to make a buck, it's either directly or indirectly, going to affect species. And so my job is to try to work with others. So I worked very closely with Plum Creek Timber Company for 3 years to complete a habitat conservation plan of 1.7 million acres, conserving 17 different native fish species across Washington, Idaho, and Montana. And that was really fun. I was working directly with this one guy who's a real superstar forester, cared a lot about conservation. And he said, Ted, every time our loggers are done working in the woods at 5 o'clock on their way home, they'll stop, get their fishing rod out of the back of their pickup truck and, catch a trout. So they want fish just like the rest of us do. And so that really shaped my thinking on how to work with people who work on the land. Then I worked with mining companies in Nevada. Now, of course, I'm working with ranchers in prairie grouse country.
Okay. With the sage grouse, did you think it was the right move to not list them?
At the time, I supported it. I think
supported listing or supported not listing?
Supported not listing. So they took I was the Nevada state supervisor, and they took us and the other 12 or 11, whatever, state supervisors together with the agency leadership. It was a big thing. Remember, they did this whole sage grouse initiative, and hundreds of millions of dollars through Department of Interior, Department of Ag. And so, with the promise of that program and how things were going, you could see how eventually it could help, although those things never sustained. And of course, it is not. So in that moment, you could kind of turn it the right way and say, yeah, listing is not warranted. So I chose to support it. We were all kind of on the same team saying, what do we think here? And so that was the opinion that carried, and I supported that. And today, sage grouse are that much. We lose 1.2 million acres of sagebrush every year.
That's crazy.
what's the base that 1.2, just so we can think about it in percentages to make it even more?
I think we're 60 million acres.
Okay.
Maybe is what we're down to now, I think. So maybe it's less than that. Maybe. I'm not sure. But if you pencil that out, I mean, it's an asymptotic curve. I just kind of, it's going to suck.
And is that, I know you talked about the cheatgrass dynamic. If you were sort of listing the impacts in an ordinal ranking, is that the top?
Yeah. So to me, the top three impacts to sagebrush ecosystems are cheatgrass, and cheatgrass. Now, a lot of people say it's fire because the thing that causes the sagebrush to evaporate within any given calendar year is flames that burn the sage-grouse. Like, oh gosh, fire's the biggest threat. Some more forward-thinking people will say it's fire and invasives. Cheatgrass. The North American Grouse Partnership strongly disagrees. It is not fire and invasives. It is invasives and fire.
Yeah.
Because fire has always been a natural part of sagebrush ecosystems. The thing that has changed is invasive cheatgrass. And interestingly, you guys are probably both familiar with a book called A Sand County Almanac, written by our friend Aldo Leopold, published back in 1949. He actually wrote the original essay in 1941 as a separate publication and included this essay in his book. But I don't know, you guys probably don't remember unless you read it regularly. Leopold included a chapter in A Sand County Almanac called Cheat Takes Over. Mm-hmm. Is that amazing? That man saw this coming in 1941.
Add that to the list of prophecies.
Yes.
It is hard to think of. It is hard. Oh, go ahead. Finish your point.
So he said the cause of the substitution is overgrazing. Now, remember, that was on the heels of the Taylor Grazing Act in 1934 because Western rangeland was unregulated and there was way too much livestock everywhere. So he was pretty clear at that point. Today, I would say overgrazing surely is still an issue, either a legacy from decades ago or currently in some places where maybe it's still occurring. But really, chronic soil disturbance is the thing. So more roads, more off-road vehicle use, all of those kinds of things are facilitating the spread of cheatgrass and is what making sagebrush ecosystems threatened.
So I don't know if you know this, Ted, but I work on invasive species a lot.
I did not
invasive plant. Yeah, I'm a research ecologist and I work on plants, and I've spent a lot of time working on invasive plants. A couple things you said there I just want to comment on. This idea, like, that is it a problem? Fire is the idea. Cheatgrass. I think I agree with you, but it is complicated because cheatgrass causes fire and fire causes cheatgrass.
Yeah. So here's my analogy, Matt. See if this resonates with you and Ben. Say your basement's flooding. You have two options. One, you can turn off the water to your house. Two, you can go get a pump and pump out your basement. If we prioritize fire suppression in sagebrush ecosystems, we're prioritizing pumping out the basement. I say, let's shut off the water first, or at the same time. But right? I mean, we hire sage grouse biologists. We're not hiring plant ecologists. And we need an army of plant ecologists out there to help us figure out what does chronic soil disturbance mean? What does overgrazing mean? Ranchers don't want cheatgrass either. That's the best part. If we empowered ranchers and said, look, here's what Leopold said, overgrazing, chronic soil disturbance, all these things, help us figure out what it means on your grazing allotment to grow more native bunch grasses and less cheatgrass. And I bet there's a lot of ranchers out there who could help us with that. But we don't have that conversation because we're afraid.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what you do with places that are already cheatgrass monocultures, which is a large part of the Great Basin. I mean, in my mind, you can graze them or not graze them, and they're going to stay cheatgrass.
In fact, there's even some data saying if you graze it the right amount at the right time, it can suppress cheatgrass. I'm sure that's true, but there's so much you can't.
If there's nothing in the understory, it doesn't.
Yeah, it just comes back as cheatgrass.
Yeah,
so, but if the ranchers don't like it, there's not the none of the ag chemical companies have found a cocktail that's useful, or in that case, the cure is worse than the disease, or
there is. So there's an herbicide. I'll call it cheesegrass specific. That may be an overstatement, but it is effectively killing cheatgrass is an annual.
Yeah.
And so I'd say it, maybe kills annuals, not perennials, and because the native bunch grasses are mostly perennials. And so, yes, you can use that. But the problem is,
well, there's several. Are you talking about it in Indaziflam? It's marketed as what is the common name of Indaziflam? Rejuvra.
That name doesn't ring a bell, but honestly, Matt, it's been a few years since I've thought about chemical treatments for cheatgrass. But what I've learned, if you want to get rid of an invasive species, killing it is only half the problem. The other half is what's going to come back in its place. And that's the really hard part, is getting, so Ensinkia tessellata, for example, is a native annual forb that's good at invading in recently burned areas. Historically, that's what came back. But we don't have a program to propagate and plant or distribute seeds of Ensinkia tessellata after we say spray for cheatgrass. I say we don't have a program. I've been away for this long enough. Hopefully things are trending in that direction. But I mean, there's just fundamental ecological things here, Matt, that I imagine resonate with you. I mean, it's on my own property here in Idaho. I'm in the mountains an hour north of Boise, and spotted knapweed and rush skeleton weed and a few other things. But those are the two biggies. I don't just kill spotted knapweed and rush skeleton weed. I come back and I plant native bunch grasses and forbs.
Yeah. That's what you have to do when there's nothing else left to come back. Well, okay, so a lot going on here. One thing is, I believe that if you use an herbicide, that you might temporarily control the weed. Like with cheatgrass, we have this kick butt herbicide now. Yeah, it's called Rejuvra is the trade name. And what it does is it kills plants as they germinate. So it'll kill all plants as they germinate.
Oh, so you have to time it.
Yeah. But even with that herbicide, because providing up to 5-6 years of control, which is insane. Mm-hmm. If that's all you do, the cheatgrass is going to come back. So you have to introduce other plants, which is very, very difficult. I have some colleagues in Burns, Oregon, at the USDA research station there that wrote a paper a couple of years ago, in which, after many, many years of trying to restore cheatgrass invaded areas in the Great Basin, have pretty much concluded in this paper that it's impossible given current technology.
Oh yeah, I bet millions of acres are gone forever. And but first let's stop the bleeding, right? First let's shut the water off to the basement. Let's figure that out. And there's a lot of well-meaning agencies that, after a fire, plant sagebrush. That's okay, but sagebrush isn't an outcome. Cheatgrass is going to come back in the understory, and it'll be at high risk of burning again.
So one thing I want to, just for the sake of making sure that the listeners that don't follow this stuff closely don't get confused. In the Great Plains, where we have a lot of sagebrush habitat, the cheatgrass fire cycle is not nearly the issue, if at all. Right? Mm-hmm. Like in the northern Great Plains, it's hard to find a place that doesn't have cheatgrass or an allied species called Japanese brome that's very, very similar. And these plants, they are undesirable. The rangelands would be better without those plants, but they tend to live in harmony with the native plants. If you get fall rain, they can make up to 50% of the biomass. And if you don't get fall rain, they're next to non-existent, and they don't really displace things. They might reduce the production of other grasses and maybe suppress sagebrush a little bit, in years when they're highly abundant, but it's not as dire.
That's right. And development of sagebrush habitat is still a big threat, especially in the eastern half of the sagebrush ecosystem. So, Matt, thanks for making that point. That's a good one.
I think here, and you may know about this more than me, Ted, my understanding is that in the Great Plains, it's like conversion to crop land still happens in some parts of the Great Plains. So that's one thing that's going on.
Sagebrush control. Yeah, some ranchers want to get rid of the sagebrush, so there's a little bit more grass breaker out there.
Mm-hmm. And energy development, mining. Right.
Yeah. Now, if we're talking prairie grouse more broadly, so we call prairie grouse sage grouse, sharp-tailed grouse, greater prairie chickens, and lesser prairie chickens. Yeah, the further east you get, the more of a threat sod busting to receive farm subsidies, I should say specifically, because it's more and more marginal ground that produces crops less and less regularly. But because the farmer can get paid every year, whether they grow a crop or not, it pays for them to bust sod. So farming, energy development, woody vegetation encroaching is one of the biggest ones by acre. That's relatively easily managed if you use fire. Fire has historically been a part of all of these prairie grouse ecosystems. But fire is increasingly difficult to place on the landscape because of the risks to our ever-growing human population.
So, okay, that point at the beginning, Ted, of farmers getting paid to do something that is most likely to fail. What is the origin of that sort of wisdom?
Well, it's crop subsidies, right? So,
it's generic crop subsidies.
Yeah. So early last century, ups and downs of the ag markets, agriculturists going out of business and not being around the next year to produce enough food for Americans to eat. Yeah. Federal government said, you know what, we're going to level this out with subsidies for farmers so that in tough years they can still make a living, and in good years, they're on their own kind of thing. But that's evolved to the point where, thanks to lobbying by, John Deere, Monsanto, you name it, to break as much ground as we can, try to grow as much crop as we can so we can sell that many more tractors, that much more seed, that much more chemical. And now it's created this perverse environment where, in many instances, especially like in lesser prairie chicken country where rainfall is the least of most of the prairie grouse, sagebrush compete for part of that title as well. But southwestern Great Plains, mostly arid, it's really hard to pull a crop off there, by breaking sod and planting corns or soybeans. But you're guaranteed to get paid every year, because if your crop fails, you get paid anyway. So here's the way one of my ranching friends put it. He goes, right now, he farms and he ranches on his property. He says, right now, I could break out all the rest of my rangeland and double my income on farm subsidies, whether I ever grow a crop or not.
The reason I don't, messed up.
Yeah, and he says the reason I don't is because I love the ranching lifestyle and I love grasslands and I love prairie grouse and all that comes with it. If that's our model for saving the most threatened ecosystem on the continent and in the world, we're screwed.
Yeah.
And that's what grasslands are. The most threatened ecosystem on the continent and the world, 84% of them are privately owned. They're all working rangelands. Ranching pays less than any other form of land use. That's why grasslands are the most threatened ecosystem on the continent and in the world. If it takes the goodwill of my ranching friends like AJ or Brett or Stacy to, out of the goodness of their heart, save grasslands and prairie grouse, that's only in the last until they sell out or they die and their kids take over and making money becomes a priority. And I don't blame them. We would do the same thing. That's the conundrum we're in when it comes to losing grasslands and prairie grouse.
Man, do you operate in the legislative sphere at all?
We are trying to. Remember, I'm a retired federal endangered species biologist who was prohibited by law from talking to members of Congress about things like this for my whole career.
Right.
But that's not stopping me, Matt and Ben. We're working on that. And thank goodness, let me give credit. We've got really good engagement so right now we help stand up a group called the Lesser Prairie Chicken Landowner Alliance. Mm-hmm. And just think about that. They chose to call themselves that. This heroic group of rancher conservationist heroes, their mission is to save ranching, rural communities, water, and wildlife. And we throw water in there because first, water polls better than anything else amongst the public for environmental protection. And secondly, healthy rangelands retain up to 66% more water than bare ground. So less preaching, generalize, ranching, rural communities, water, wildlife. There are the 5-state area of Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico, Colorado. And I'll give a shout out to Senators Moran and Marshall, Congressman Mann, Senator Bennett. Those are and Congresswoman Davids, all from Kansas. Those all 4. Senator Bennett from Colorado, Senator Heinrich from New Mexico, and a couple others. Senator Langford from Oklahoma has helped us a little bit. And the others, I'm not mentioning their names only because we haven't gotten to them yet. But I'll tell you what, you guys, I call them up and I say, hey, Ted Koch Grouse Partnership, on behalf of Less Prairie Chicken Land Alliance, we got to start paying these ranchers fair market value for the conservation services they have on their land because they can't afford to keep giving it away for free. I never get told no. The only thing slowing us down right now is how fast I can move my feet and the size of my megaphone. And I say mine. I mean, really, it's these landowners. It's the 17 rancher conservationist leaders of the Less Prairie Chicken Land Alliance who have the biggest megaphone. I called them 3 years. We started them 3 years ago. They said, Ted, all these groups go to Congress and tell Congress what we need for conservation on our lands, but nobody ever comes and asks us. You're the first person that came and asked us. And eventually we realized how ranching pays less than any other form of wildlife. And these current farm bill programs that pay cost share. So, hey, we want you to save an endangered species, but you got to pay 25% out of your own pocket. That's insane. When the federal government buys cars from Ford Motor Company, they don't turn around and ask Ford Motor Company, what's your cost share, right? We want these ranchers to sell us their conservation services. We should pay a fair market value for that. And I am not being told no. This is really resonating, and folks are understanding that we need to do business differently to save the most threatened ecosystem on the continent and the world. So shout out to all those politicians I just mentioned for receiving me and receiving us and listening, and we're working to get there fast as we can.
But I thought that the lesser prairie chicken, this seemed to be on somewhat of a technicality. It got removed recently, and I thought that the one congressman Mann was sort of celebrating that.
Yes,
that isn't that seems problematic, right?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how you want to look at it. So, when the Lesser Prairie Chicken was listed, this really creative company called Common Ground Capital established a conservation bank, and basically they would go negotiate with a rancher to put a permanent conservation easement on their land, restore habitat, and create an endowment to pay to manage it to grow chickens and livestock in perpetuity.
Yeah,
and then they would turn around, and a wind energy development company that was going to develop in lesser prairie chicken habitat when it was listed would buy those conservation bank credits from Common Ground Capital. Wonderful program. That's gone away with the delisting. So it's there's lots of reasons you can say. And also the regulatory disincentive. If they were going to develop in really good chicken habitat, it would cost more for the credits. If they kind of avoided it and went to lower quality habitat. So very powerful tool, but now that's gone. So we could lament that, right? But the vision of the Lesser Prairie Chicken Land Alliances and the North American Grouse Partnership is we can do this with or without. We can recover we can save ranching, rural communities, water and wildlife, and truly remove threats to lesser prairie chicken and recover them, and remove threats to the regal fritillary butterfly, the bobolink, the Cassin's sparrow, and anything else that's coming behind it if we implement the vision of the Lesser Prairie Chicken Land Alliance, whether chickens are listed or not, by using Farm Bill Conservation Title Program dollars. And that's why, you guys, when I have the conversations with these politicians and their staff, not only do they not say no, they mostly say yes. So we're just trying to piece this together as fast as we can and get there.
So if I had to say, if I could, I don't know anything about any of this. So I sometimes it's instructive just to throw out what I would do in your shoes, and then you could tell me where I'm wrong. But like based on what I'm hearing and I'm learning all this right now in real time, what I'd say the best thing would be is instead of paying people to break out low productivity land and try to grow something on it so that they can get their commodity support, we should just pay them to not till it up.
Basically, yes. Now, here's the challenge. The American Farm Bureau, they get a lot of their money from big ag, and their platform is that we should break out more ground. And that's why these programs exist.
Who is that again?
American Farm Bureau and other ag
okay.
private companies.
Okay.
Right? Okay. But I mean, they don't do it because they hate grasslands. They're not even thinking about grasslands.
Right. It's like, yeah.
Yeah. And so if the Grouse Partnership or the Landlord Alliance or others come out and say, let's stop paying to break out farmland, immediately you'll get opposition from very powerful interests. So,
that's interesting.
But that because, I mean, the stated fact is that the arable land or the number of acres devoted to row crops has gone down each year for quite some time. And I think, most of those companies, I guess, sort of readily admit that. So maybe it's about managing some of that decline.
Yeah. I'm sure people in the American Farm Bureau are not, everyone, everyone is truly good at heart, right? And Frank, they've got their reasons, right? And it's, they want more ag. I mean, they're champions of ag. I want more ag too, right? We all do. It's just that these policies, that's why, to me, one of the greatest forms of environmental destruction are government subsidies. And this is a great example. Nobody intended for it to be this way, but it is.
Yeah.
And to untangle it is going to take a lot of work. So instead of focusing on not doing the sod busting, we're focusing on doing the thing of paying ranchers more to stay in ranching. Ideally, you do both at the same time. You're absolutely right, Matt. We're just focused on, let's pay ranchers enough that they can at least stay on the ground.
So how are you proposing that those dollars get to the rancher? Like, what's the mechanism?
Through the conservation title of the Farm Bill. So Farm Bill has Title 1, which is the farm subsidies, and Title 2, which is conservation title.
Okay.
But that's all this cost share stuff where, rancher, we'll pay you 75% of the cost to build your fence or your water development. And we hope it'll do two things. One, we hope it'll increase your production as a rancher. And two, we hope it'll help a little bit with conservation. And it usually does both of those. I mean, that program works the way it's intended. It's not intended to save the most threatened ecosystem on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
It's not intended to keep ranchers in business. Well, I mean, it helps their production, right? So it is a little bit. But check this out. We lose 2 million acres of grasslands in the Great Plains every single year. The number of livestock producers is down 40% since last century. U.S. cattle herd is at its lowest level since 1951. And 41 of the 44 lesser prairie chicken counties in the 5 state regions have lost populations.
Wow.
So do we care about ranchers and rural communities and water and wildlife? If so, here's a great opportunity to save them. And oh, by the way, whoops, we recovered an endangered species at the same time. What do you know?
Yeah. Yeah. A win-win.
A win-win-win.
Yeah. Win-win. If we start going into the butterfly, the fertile area and everything else, there's a lot of...
But is the greatest impediment to this just the noise throughout Washington and the other sorts of competing interests and getting, because I think, like the National Grasslands Act, that's been stuck, just as a potential bill for some time. So is it just fighting through all that and staying the course?
It is. And I think the greatest impediment to progress right now is my lack of experience as a lobbyist. And I'm trained as a scientist, so I want to cross all my T's and dot all my I's. I think I've been wasting a little bit too much time on that. But here's the power that the North American Grouse Partnership, grousepartners.org, by the way, has brought to the table. We went to the people who actually own the land and participate in the programs and asked them, what do you need? And they've told it. And honestly, it's taken 3 years of conversation between the Grouse Partnership and these heroic landowners to really boil this story down. It's so maddening, Ben, that it's taken me this long. But we are truly on the cusp right now. I've been test messaging. I was back in D.C. in April, meeting with the staff of the senators and congressmen. And so the impediment right now is, I almost say there's no impediment. We're ready to go and we're about to go. We're just putting the finishing touches on the Lesser Prairie Chicken Landowner Alliance's Ranching Strongholds proposal. They propose to develop 10 200,000-acre ranching strongholds across 44 counties in 5 states. Mm-hmm. That'll say ranching, rural communities, water, and wildlife, and make sure that Lesser Prairie chickens never get listed again because they'll actually be conserved.
You know, it'd be good if the beef that comes from that land, could have like an organic sticker.
Yeah, Audubon has a great program. They're champions. National Wildlife Federation is, they're doing the Grasslands Act. There's everyone. Yeah. Pheasants Forever is the champion of grasslands conservation, I think, in our country's history. I mean, they're all about upland birds and grasslands. Maryland Better is amazing.
Grouse safe beef or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But bird-friendly beef is the Audubon program.
That is really a thing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But where does, is like NRDC, Sierra Club, are they rowing in your direction? Or
I don't run much in those circles. Audubon is as close as I get.
Yeah.
It's just, we're more in the middle, Center for Biological Diversity, that sort of stuff. I would hope that they would support us, except that, like Western Watersheds Project, another one of these groups way out there, they hate ranching so viscerally. I imagine, if they ever hear my voice, they're probably like, no. but 84% of the remaining grasslands are owned and managed as rangelands. What are you going to do? Hate them until everything goes away? I don't know.
Hate them until they sell it to you?
Yeah.
for a price that you can't afford to pay?
Right.
Yeah, that's
well said.
I was kind of encouraged by the participation of the landowners to try to do all this, and I get that because they're sort of at the lowest level of the economic strata when it comes to farming, that it's a little tougher for them, where they want to help, they just they can't go broke at the same time.
Right.
But would you say that whether on like an acre basis or just number of ranchers, that is it like 3/4 or 90% sort of support trying to find some way to help the prairie chicken, and it's only 10% that are just a hard no, and I'm going to, maximize my yields and that's it?
I'd say unknown. Because the 17 ranchers we're working with are just exceptional human beings. They care as much about conservation as you or me or anyone else who walks the face of this earth, maybe even more, because they've owned the land sometimes for generations. It's in their blood to save their rangelands, right? And so, but I think the vast majority of ranchers are saying, "Oh, you want to do this? That sounds pretty interesting, but you got to pay me," and they're right. Maybe some of them are like, "Screw chickens! I want to." Develop my land just because I hate chickens. There's 2% of the people out there that feel that way. So I don't know, Ben. Good question, but I failed to complete my thought earlier. The difference now, the reason why we have hope of stopping and reversing the loss of grasslands, at least in the Great Plains, is because of leadership from the landowners themselves. I don't get Senator Moran's attention or Senator Marshall's or Congressman Mann or any of those people's attention as Ted Koch, Executive Director of the North American Grouse Partnership. I get it as a representative of the Lesser Prairie Chicken Landowner Alliance. I met with Senator Moran's staff back in April, and then he passed through the office. I shook his hand. He said, "What are you here for?" I said, "I met with your staffer on this issue." I didn't want to take his time. His friends had just showed up. I said, "But your staffer's got me covered, thanks." I said, "But I'm here representing these two ranchers, Stacy and Mark." And he smiled and he goes, "I know those guys. That's why we're going to make a difference now. That's why this time we're poised to move the needle."
I have some clarifying questions. So we started out, when we started talking, we talked about cheatgrass being the biggest issue with sagebrush habitat, right?
In the West, especially, yeah.
Yeah. But what we're talking about now is not focused on that, right? What we're focused on now is the second biggest issue, which is tilling up sagebrush to grow crops, right?
Yeah, land conversion, tilling, woody encroachment, energy.
Okay. So when you talk to these people, the ranching community, over this prolonged period of time, you said 3 years of like...
We've been working together now for 3 years.
Yeah. And trying to figure out what it's going to take to keep them afloat financially while simultaneously doing conservation measures. What is it that you learned other than we need money in order to not till?
that treating conservation as an externality to an otherwise legitimate business is wrong. It will never work. If we say, here's the business model, and, let's do some conservation over here, we will always lose. If we can monetize conservation, we can say, look, here's the value. If we value clean air and clean water, more water, healthy soils and vegetation, healthy wildlife, and sequestering carbon, this is how much it costs per acre.
Okay.
So let me give you an example of how this can work to a farmer. So the Playa Lakes Joint Venture Program runs this reverse auction program to protect Playa Lakes for migratory birds. And it also, by the way, is the single best way to improve water quality and quantity or infiltration into underground aquifers is protecting playas. So the PLJV comes into account.
That's a kind of lake?
A playa is the seasonal lake.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. And if you protect those with a nice buffer, it gives you migratory bird habitat, it gives you clean water, and it gives you more water that infiltrates into what is the otherwise declining underground aquifer right now.
Okay. And this is in the 5-state region we're talking about?
In the 5-state region, the Playa Lakes Joint Venture has this innovative reverse auction program that they've gotten some federal funding for, and then they've had to raise a lot of private dollars for it, which to me is wrong. The government should be paying 100%. If we care about things like clean air, clean water, more water, those things, right? Okay, so they come into a county and they say, hey, all you farmers with Playa Lakes, tell us how much you want to get paid to protect tell us what you have for lakes and how much you want to get paid to protect it. So for all the farmers that want nothing to do with it, all they have to do the next morning is wake up and do nothing. So the farmers that want to participate, they can say, well, that's a pain in the ass to farm, and I kind of like, birds and water. So if they want me to leave a buffer like this, they've got to pay me X amount per acre for these 3 playa lakes on my farm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And then so all the farmers across the county that want to participate, they put in their bids. The PLJV goes through those bids, and they say, what's the biggest bang for the buck? The most conservation value for the lowest price. They pick those, they sign the contract with that farmer, and we've just helped that farmer. We've paid him fair market value because the farmer said, if you pay me this much, it's worth it for me to do it. Instead of getting paid growing and selling a crop, I'll get paid growing and selling conservation.
But how long does that last? It's like I will never farm this lake. Permanent.
It's a time limited. And I'm sorry to say, I can't say exactly, but I think either 5 or 10 years in that range there.
Okay, so this is really something that's going to be an ongoing thing.
Yeah, and that's fun. I mean, it's a rental. Every year those conservation services are produced.
Right.
It's
right.
Like
I'm not saying it's not a bad thing. It's just, of course, we could all rest a little easier if it was in perpetuity, but you can't.
And there should be some of that.
Perfect enemy of good,
That's right. And there should be, perpetuity in that mix for those landowners that want to do it, and they can get paid more up front, right? Hey, you want a permanent conservation easement on this big circle of wet on my property? Pay me X plus Y amount. Okay. That's what we need to do is monetize this.
Yeah. Has the Nature Conservancy or anyone, they can't be a full solution given, how much land and how many dollars they have, but do they step in to say...
Yes, Nature Conservancy has been our strongest partner in here. Ben, great question. I'll say his name, Matt Bain with Kansas Nature Conservancy, and just a superstar of a conservation hero. The ranchers love him to death. Yeah, and they've been doing a lot of this, both temporary and permanent easements combined with management that is sufficient to grow lesser prairie chickens and provide all of the other conservation values.
Okay. Yeah, I thought that they would be a decent stopgap. I know we kind of got a little far afield. I don't know, Matt. I wanted to just ask a question about the origin of the North American Grouse Partnership.
Great question.
Yeah, let's go nuts and bolts. I got a couple of those sorts of questions myself.
Yeah.
So,
falconers.
Okay.
So we have the coolest origin story. I don't know if you guys ever heard of Tom Cade.
No.
He was he ran the Cornell Lab of Ornithology for years, and then was head of the World Center for Birds of Prey, which coincidentally happened to be based in Boise.
Oh, right.
In 2000, the morning after peregrine falcons were removed from the endangered species list, Tom Cade and several other falconers got together in Tom Cade's basement. And they said, man, prairie grouse are our number one prey for us falconers. That's our holy grail. We love catching prairie grouse with our falcons. Prairie grouse are going down the tubes. What are we going to do? Let's start the North American Grouse Partnership. Now, here's the amazing thing. 30 years ago, actually 35 years ago, I met a man by the name of Morley Nelson. Outside of Idaho, we have the Morley Nelson Snake River Birds of Prey Natural Area. He was a famous falconer, made movies with Walt Disney, and he was my master falconer and taught me how to fly falcons and introduced me to Tom Cade and all these other conservation heroes. I'd never heard of the Grouse Partnership until late in my career before I retired. And then I found this origin stories from these friends and heroes of mine, and I get to be here doing their work. It's very
that's awesome.
Emotional.
Yeah. You're standing on the shoulders of giants.
Exactly.
And so am I correct in that the Peregrine Falcon organization, did they sort of declare mission success and move on?
Yes. They still work to conserve many other endangered birds of prey around the world.
Yeah.
But peregrine falcons are recovered and delisted. Success story under the Endangered Species Act.
And so I think that's a huge point, because the Hunt Quietly has we've been looking at all the hunting not-for-profits. NAGP's technically not a hunting not-for-profit, even though that they're a prime beneficiary.
We're full of hunters. I love shooting sage grouse. Yeah.
But it did not sort of like on the mission statement, there's nothing specifically to a hunter in the NAGP. That's right. That's all. Yeah. That's right. But it really speaks to the virtue of the organization, that the founders, when they had success, it was all about getting the success, and then they said, "What's the next hill to climb?"
Amen.
And I'm not sure, Matt. I'm not sure if it'd be better if that sentimentality was sort of easier seen across the hunting not-for-profits.
Okay, let me try this. So I think what Ben is saying is it's hard to conceive of some nonprofits going away even if all their problems were solved.
Yeah.
They'll invent a problem or which is
so the Peregrine Fund, still exists, is bigger and badder than ever. They're kicking ass, saving dozens of endangered species of birds of prey across the world. They're still called the Peregrine Fund, which I think is, poetic in many ways, right? Here's our success story, and I think they've had other successes. But then they wake up the next morning and start a new organization focused on saving the most threatened ecosystem on Earth.
Sure. Yeah. It's like, what's the next problem? And let's go do something. Yeah. Right. I don't know if I summarized what you were trying to say well or not, Ben. I mean, it'd take a lot of talking to say why I think this is a problem with, like, okay, just briefly, I guess. It's just there was a lot of momentum about this federal land sale recently. And a lot of these organizations got a lot of donations to ward off that federal land sale. And now that that's gone, I see some of them like almost kind of manufacturing threats.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the best way to fundraise, is fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that where you were going, Ben?
A bit. And it's about integrity of mission and having no mission creep. I think that was something about the NAGP that when I started perusing how to pay back what hunting's done for me, it rose above the rest. It became pretty obvious there wasn't a lot of other fluff. I'll put it that way.
That's one of the magic of the moment is we're pretty bare bones, young, growing, aggressive, new angle, most important issue that, way more Americans give money to save rainforests in South America. They don't even know the most threatened ecosystem in the world's in their backyard. But we're working to change that. Yeah.
This is a question we should I should have asked right up front, because I didn't know this until we started talking, but I just kind of pieced it together. I'm gathering that you guys are only focused on prairie grouse.
So we include all 12 North American grouse species, but we focus on prairie grouse because prairies are the most threatened ecosystem on the continent and the world.
I see.
And then we've got Rough Grouse Society out there, way bigger than us and doing great things for trying to save rough grouse habitat, which is a big problem, right? Everyone thinks cutting a tree is terrible. And it's not. It's a natural, deforestation has occurred naturally, and that's what rough grouse need. So yes, the other species we don't focus on, dusky grouse, blue grouse, ptarmigan, spruce grouse. These other species are generally not as much of conservation concern. And so we've actually thought about being more explicit of saying we're focused just on prairie grouse, but we want to be able to just say grouse partnership in general. Who knows, what the future may hold, and needs for conservation for some of those other species. But yeah, right now we are 99% prairie grouse.
Okay, and then this goes to you're a young, growing organization. So Ben and I were wondering, your budget is very small, like what, 300 and something?
Yeah.
$1,000 a year.
Yeah.
But then I look at your staff, and there's like 5 staff members.
Dude, I'll just tell this story on my good friend Jim Inglis. Jim retired as government affairs director from Pheasants Forever, where he did a fantastic job for many years. He's now the government affairs director for the North American Grouse Partnership as a volunteer.
Okay, so some of your staff members don't get paid.
But they need to get paid, man. And I am working. We were able to raise about $80,000 in the last 3 months. We need to raise about $200,000 more per year so that I can pay my friend Jim and pay others better. We've got this fresh out of grad school. He just got his PhD last week. Taylor's his name. He's the Lesser Prairie Chicken Land Alliance coordinator. He's the future of grasslands conservation. I'm paying him, but not enough. Jody Provost recently retired from the, his last names, but recently retired from the state of Minnesota. She's our communications director. She gets paid to work part-time, but not enough. So we're right at this moment where we're beginning to be effective. We're actually drawing talent to us that wants to be with us because they see us making a real difference. And so we're in this interesting growth moment, communication moment, advocacy moment. I mean, I wake up tomorrow morning and I get to do this stuff. Well, the other thing is I'm a part-time executive director and I only get paid for 26 hours a week. So.
And you're funded just completely from member donations?
Yes.
Okay.
Right now, we actually secured a grant through the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation paid by USDA, but those funds were withdrawn in January and we haven't gotten them back yet.
Is there a chance you will?
We haven't been told no completely, but we've asked some of our political friends to inquire with the current administration, and we've not gotten an answer.
That's a USDA program, National Fish and Wildlife Foundation?
So the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation is a quasi-public-private entity, and they will often get funds from federal agencies like USDA and grant them to organizations like ours. So National Fish and Wildlife Foundation is kind of a granting organization, middleman, to help distribute private, and so they'll also get matching funds from Walmart or Burger King or whatever to address grassland issues. They'll put that together with the federal money and then issue grants.
Okay, Ben, I'm sorry, I'm hogging. I'll quit hogging here soon. I just was trying to get a handle on the funding piece. So yeah, people can go to your website and make a donation.
Yes, and please do, and please know this is the moment. If you care about grasslands and you care about prairie grouse, the moment to lean in is right now.
Okay. Yeah.
We're excited. Yeah. We're optimistic. We've got the A team assembled because they want to be on the A team. Not that we're paying them a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, how validating is that, right? I mean, that's awesome.
So our group has a lot of suspicion about large hook and bullet type organizations. I don't know if you've followed us at all or like listened to our episode on the Turkey Federation.
Oh no, I have not that one, but I've seen some of your stuff. Yeah.
And I mean, there is a lot to be concerned about with some of these bigger organizations. I won't go into it now, but like just very generally, the financial statements are a lot of money that by any reasonable standards belongs in the fundraising column, ends up in the conservation column. Overstatements of impact, very vague numbers associated with how many acres they've conserved or opened up to public access. And then when you ask for the details, you can't get it. R3, which is hunter recruitment, which to a large extent seems to me to be the way that these organizations just serve as the handmaiden to the hunting industry instead of serving their constituency groups, which are the hunters that are donating to them, et cetera, et cetera. So we're always looking for other organizations that we can feel proud about and promote. And you guys are definitely an organization that we're going to have no problem promoting.
Thank you.
Yes.
I bet if we did our analysis of acres saved or habitat improved relative scaling it to their budget, they'd come out multiples ahead of everything else we've looked at.
Yeah, right.
So it's the comebacks to say, look how inefficient you are relative to NAGP. Pick your hunting not for profit.
Yeah, it'd be hard for us to do. We're a science-based policy advocacy group. So for us to count acres on the scoreboard, I mean, we could do it, but it's...
Yeah. And I would take it that there's no official stance on like support of the North American model of wildlife conservation, but you guys would
completely 100%.
Yeah. So that kind of goes without saying.
I mean, whoever isn't a falconer hunts prairie grouse with a gun. I mean, that's
yeah.
We're an organization of. I don't know that anybody. When you think about this, I don't know that anybody does not hunt on my board or staff.
Yeah, but I mean, I could see Citizen XYZ who stumbles down a path of relationship with wild places that a few dollars from them could wind up in your coffer. I don't think that's
absolutely. I know lots of people where I live that go out and look at sage grouse leks and they don't hunt.
Right.
Yeah. It's a good tool to help a little bit of get some money in there.
So I'm a pretty shitty podcast host. This part should be like the end, but I have one more avenue of inquiry I want to try. I don't know if you do have any more, Ben, but I have one more, and this is the one that's going to make you have to think the hardest.
All right. I love it.
It's not going to put you on the spot at all. Okay. It's just going to... So what I got when you're describing the way you guys operate is that it's very conciliatory towards the farmers and the ranchers. You're trying to work with them. You're trying to work with them within the context of their financial constraints to get something done. And on pragmatic grounds, that probably is the right way to go. But a part of me, as I think about this, goes, no, what you guys should be doing is trying to get these on the endangered species list. And it's like, you want to till up that ground? You're shit out of luck because that's on the endangered species list. You want to drain that playa and farm it? Nope. Because that bird is threatened. And not only that, you want some public money? Okay, we'll give you some public money, but there's going to be access strings attached. And you're going to allow some public access for hunting. So, like, that's an entirely different model. And I'm just wondering, in choosing the one that you chose, did you ever contemplate the other?
Yeah, so I'm a retired federal endangered species biologist. I regulated people all my career.
Yeah. Okay.
But I grew up in a conservative Republican household in Connecticut. I believe in free markets. I believe in low regulation. I believe in private property rights. Those are like core values to me. Now, I moved to Idaho, decided I'm not a conservative Republican in Idaho, but that's another story.
Right.
Yeah.
But these values, to me, again, if we treat conservation as an externality and just appropriate, a couple $1 billion a year to throw at it, instead of making it part of a regular business practice, we'll never succeed. I really believe we need to pay these ranchers fair market value for the conservation services that they have that we all want. We all want clean water, clean air, all that, right? So, my core fundamental belief is to honor these landowners' private property rights and markets and their passion to not only feed America beef, but to embrace the conservation values on their land and feature them in that regard. So that has nothing to do with regulation. That has everything to do with this positively framed, proactive opportunity to pay them fair market value for what they really want to sell us.
Yeah.
So
I guess, and I could see where you'd come down on that, especially as someone that thinks as property rights is sacrosanct. I just struggle with all that, man. Like I'm a dude that has 7 acres and I have trespassing allowed signs on it. It's like one person's freedom to exclude is somebody else's lack of freedom. Yeah. And I struggle with that.
So you're right. So I also think I know lesser prairie chickens warrant listing according to the Endangered Species Act and the factors that I'm very familiar with my whole career. I think listing would help recover them and would not hurt ranchers. But there's a number of Lesser Prairie Chicken Land Alliance members that fear the ESA talk and don't want chickens listed. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not about to advocate for listing because I know that some of the ranchers that are very important to me who really want to save chickens and, ranching in rural communities, water and wildlife, really don't want them listed. And so we've developed this structure that's this big tent. You've got some ranchers who are like, fine with me if they're listed. It creates that conservation banking program from Common Ground Capital, and I can be a customer, and that works for me. I like chickens being listed. Yeah. You got other ranchers who are like, oh my God, I'm going to get regulated. No, no, no. So we had to build this ship to accommodate both kinds of ranchers. So personally, Matt, I don't oppose listing. In fact, I think it's warranted. I would support it, but for the fear that some of my rancher friends have of being regulated.
Yeah, gotcha. No, it's probably the right, prudent approach. But I don't think that European and Scandinavian countries lack prudence because they instituted right to roam laws.
Yeah, those were cool.
I don't think that that's beyond the pale. I don't think that makes them like communist or Marxist countries that they did that. And in the same way, I wouldn't think it really strange if we had right to have prairie chicken laws.
Which we do.
Right.
For the Endangered Species Act, right? We just don't, it's more broad, but yeah. Well, or right to save ecosystem laws.
Yeah.
I mean, really, we should be taking a much more structured, intelligent, inclusive approach to saving the most threatened ecosystem on the continent. I mean, it's not that hard. We can make it work for everyone, but you're right. There aren't thought leaders out there kind of saying, hey, let's step back and look at the bigger picture. But that's right, Matt. I agree.
And, and it's like, I think you're right with what you're trying to do in that 5-state area, that there are ways you can make progress that aren't painful to the landowners, like at least maybe a little pain, but not much. But I don't know. And that's really cool because the way my brain works is usually there's only constraints. There's only trade-offs. I mean, there's no true solutions. There's only trade-offs. That's not me. That's Thomas Sowell. Yeah, says that. So that sounds like you're working in a system there where there are solutions You can do both.
That's one of the cool things.
You can support the producer and support the resource simultaneously, and you're just trying to facilitate that. And I think that's really laudable.
What's good for the bird is good for the herd.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I mean, if the grouse does well, it's going to benefit a lot of other hunters too.
Oh yeah, well, pronghorn and mule deer are in significant decline in many of these counties in these 5 states.
Okay. Yeah. In your little trade-off thing, Matt, for some reason, what jumped into my mind was like the polio vaccine. I don't know if there was any trade-offs there.
Okay. No, I'm sure there's others where it's just yeah.
Once in a while we get a few of those. Yeah, I'm trying to. So Ted, just a wind turbine that goes up on the prairie. That you might as well turn that into a strip mall from a prairie chicken or prairie grouse perspective. Okay.
The taller the object, the wider the cone of disturbance from that object. Prairie grouse are evolved to avoid tall objects. Woody encroachment, as little as 4% per acre, can drive prairie grouse away.
And that's across species?
Generally, yeah.
Really?
Well, sharp-tailed grouse, a little bit less sensitive.
Yeah, because I'll see Sharpies sitting in trees.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, they're still a grassland species, but they can tolerate more tree cover.
Okay.
Yeah. So
not that they want it, but they can tolerate it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think about that solutions versus trade-offs where oil and gas, at least it's from a square footage footprint, it's much lower than a windmill farm.
Well, one pump jack is lower than one windmill because a pump jack is shorter than a windmill. Yeah.
Yeah. And they can drill multiple wells from the same pad.
There's opportunities. That's right.
Yeah. I mean, but if data centers start coming to parts of the West where land is relatively cheap, that's going to be another battle to fight, I think.
Yeah.
Man, you guys, we have an enormous wind farm north of where I live, about 40 miles north of Miles City.
Yeah.
That was not there 5 years ago, and it has completely transformed the landscape.
Yeah.
Just hundreds of them. And then when it's getting dark and I'm out hunting antelope or whatever, it gets dark and it's just the whole entire skyline is flashing. It's so intrusive. And I don't have an opinion one way or another. I don't know that anybody knows. Society's trying to figure it out. Is this better than burning fossil fuels or not? It's like it takes a lot of hubris to like emphatically say one way or the other, as near as I can tell. We all have our suspicions about whether that's the right way or not, but boy, it's just tough to look at.
Texas coast, same thing. My buddy and I just got drawn today for nilgai, whitetail, and hog hunt in South Texas coast. And man, you go at night. Yeah, it's awesome. But it's wind turbines everywhere. It's amazing. Yeah, and it really impacts. It's a national wildlife refuge hunt, and it really impacts the hunt. Well, it really impacts the refuges because those are bird refuges, and now you've got all these wind towers all around.
I mean, they must just chew up migratory birds like no tomorrow.
If they're in the wrong place, the wrong time, they can. Yeah.
But that bird kill is not part of the optimization function that any developer of those assets looks at, I would bet.
That's just an externalized cost. That's one of those externalized costs.
Yeah.
It's not built into the price. It's like, we'll just, pay a couple $100,000 for it.
I don't know much I know next to nothing about this, but I'm damn sure it's true somewhere or in some places. Ted, maybe you know the whole story, but I know that there are some of these wind farms with raptor migrations. They'll have people staked out, posted up. Oh, here comes a freaking golden eagle. Turn them off. and they'll turn those turbines off until the bird goes through. Have you heard about that?
I have, and I don't know enough about it, so I can't add any value, but I know some. That's why I say some turbines in some places are real bird killers. Others probably not so much. And so if we could just be smart about that. Hey, there's a string of national wildlife refuges across the Texas coast. Maybe we should move our wind farms in 20 miles. I don't know.
Yeah, right. Take wildlife into account when you're trying to figure out where to put them. Yeah.
Please.
But yeah, I mean, it does go a little bit back, Ted, to that, society is there's different values that people would adjudicate to saving a species, right? Based on the species and what they would, think it does to their relative living standard. And so, that's where I'd like to think that everyone has some variant of the outlook we have for wild places, but particularly if you're fighting 40-year high in inflation, home affordability, the worst it's been in same period of time, and things like that. I kind of go back and forth with how much are we going to trust our fellow citizens to kind of have our back through their representatives for some of these matters.
Yeah, when I was an endangered species biologist, I'd sit on a plane. So I said, "What do you do?" I said, "My job is to conserve the ecosystems upon which we and all other species depend."
Yeah.
I'm an endangered species biologist. I conserve the ecosystems upon which we and all other species depend. Clean water, clean air, more water, healthy soils, vegetation, wildlife, carbon. I mean, what could be more noble than that? But nobody knows that. I mean, I'm like the only person, first of all, who calls myself an endangered species biologist. Everyone else, their title is fish and wildlife biologist or Wildlife Service. And then nobody's really assembled the first stated purpose of the Endangered Species Act and the mission of the agency to say it like I do, which is I conserve the ecosystems upon which we and all other species depend. Whenever I say that, again, people, I don't care who they are, they're like, whoa, that sounds important. You know what? It is. It's really important. Why save a lesser prairie chicken? Well, who cares? But how about saving the ecosystems upon which we and all other species depend?
Yeah.
I care about that.
Yeah.
And why you are the executive director, because you need to be the chief persuasion officer for the cause. So
I've learned that in my 30-year. I joked about 6 years of science training, and it's really important to have that because I have a good BS detector. You know what I mean? I can read scientific papers. I know what the facts are. But really, it's all about persuasion. And I'll leave you with a Benjamin Franklin quote: "If you want to inform, speak of facts. If you want to persuade, speak of emotion."
Oh.
And so you can hear the passion in my voice and wanting to conserve the ecosystems upon which we and all other species depend, right? I mean, you've got to speak the language of these folks because, Ben, you're right. I mean, people don't wake up every day thinking about this like we do, right?
Yeah. But when you can connect it back to, a Flint, Michigan or something, even though that had specific, as a general example, there are things like that.
Everybody cares a lot about clean water. That matters a lot to everybody.
Yeah. I think there was a little pamphlet that Ben Franklin had with William Penn, and I think it was Penn who said this, though, where he's like, nature is always to be preferred above like an urban setting because it was the most directly correlated to the deity.
Yeah. That's why next week I'm going to be on a mountainside in Idaho at 8 a.m. with the sun coming up and the aspen leaves gold and the elk bugling in the canyon. That's as close as I get to God.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. It's there's one more small question. Sorry. I hope you're
good. I love it. You guys, your questions are great, by the way. Thank you.
No, I looked up. So there's roughly 150,000 members of Pheasants Forever, which is not even close to 50% of the total upland bird hunters. Like, how do you, what's your first thought when you hear something like that?
Marilyn Vetter and I, Pheasants Forever, talk about this a lot. She's like, we're a huge organization and lots of members, but it's just not even a small fraction of, all the people who care about upland habitats and upland birds out there. And I just don't know. I don't know how to think about that, Ben. That's all I can say. Marilyn and I talk about it. I mean, we only have a few hundred members, but that's really because we haven't learned how to become more like Pheasants Forever. But when you become more like Pheasants Forever or Wild Turkey Federation, it comes with baggage, right? You guys, Matt, you mentioned it. So we need to be careful. So I don't know how to get there. To get more people, I should say, understanding that, hey, think of rainforests in South America second to grasslands in your backyard. I just don't know how to get upland hunters and other, bird lovers to embrace that.
Yeah, because, I don't know how you could call yourself a serious upland hunter if you take a once-a-year trip out west for prairie chickens, or a mix of prairie chickens and pheasants or something like that, and then you just fold up your tailgate and go home, kind of not situation. You put all this time into the hunting aspect that you'd think you'd give 10% to making sure it's all good.
Yes.
Well, that was me. That was me up until the time I was 45.
Yeah.
And I'm 54 now.
Okay.
And I didn't do anything to give back. Now, like I'm a ecologist, but that, I get paid for that,
Yeah.
So I agree with you, man. I'm embarrassed to say that, but boy, do we more and more. It's just not, it's not a foregone conclusion that's going to be there.
Right. That's right. That's right. I mean, 11 years ago, you could hunt western prairie chickens in Kansas.
Yeah.
And we hunters let that go.
Right.
We're letting sage grouse go.
Yeah.
You know what the biologist in North Dakota told me, the state agency biologist, when the news broke that they couldn't find any sage grouse left in western North Dakota? He said, Ted, we kind of saw this coming for a long time, but what really scares me is the thought of within the next 30 years having sharp-tailed grouse be in the same position as sage grouse today. Imagine
and
that.
It happened, so it can happen again.
The trend is in that direction. We lose 2 million acres of grasslands a year in the Great Plains. It's headed that way. We lose 1.2 million acres of sagebrush ecosystem every freaking year. Step up. It's time for us hunters to step up. Even if you don't hunt prairie grouse, even if you just thought of mule deer and pronghorn, step up.
If this is kind of a generous but if I had an upland or a bird hunting show, I'd probably say at the beginning, here's how much acreage we're losing and here's how much the population's declined, and then I'd say it again at the end.
Yeah.
Like, how did that pass? You know what I mean?
Here, I'll leave you with one more factoid. Of the 9 prairie grouse populations historically found in North America, so like more than one kind of sage grouse or, more than one kind of greater prairie chicken, of the 9 prairie grouse populations historically found in North America, 6 are either extinct or recognized under the Endangered Species Act, and the other 3 are declining. Name another group of animals that we hunt for that's in that boat.
No, it doesn't get any more beleaguered than that.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
That's, on that depressing note.
Well,
sorry, man.
Yeah, I mean, I would say if the hunting community was in proper orientation, Ted would be one of the 5 most famous people in hunting, I think.
Well, yeah, let's get him there.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. You guys, great questions, great thoughts. I loved our philosophical intro. That was wonderful.
Enjoyed the whole conversation, learned a lot. So thanks so much, Ben, for putting this together. Ted, thank you so much for joining us. And just know we are rooting for your organization. If there's anything we can do with our tiny little platform to help you, please reach out. Be glad to do it.
Thank you so much, you guys. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, when we got like 11,000 people on our Instagram now. So when this comes out, I'll make a post about it and encourage people to engage with your organization and make a donation.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Have a good night.
See ya.
Thanks. You too.
Thanks again. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.